Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
How, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And so pleased that we've been able to finally talk because been a big fan of yours since your Marvel days, and I had a great time with this movie. So yeah, it's a real pleasure.
It's a real pleasure. I think if Twitter would tell me how long I've followed you, that it is probably for like 15 years. I feel like I've seen your name literally a million times over the years. So it's have we not ever spoken before? I guess not, right?
No, I don't think we have. So I'm glad
It's
it's for this
amazing.
movie because as much
Yeah,
as
me
I'd love
too.
as much as I'd love to pick your brain about Marvel, as I said, I had a great time with this movie. And I feel to start with, I have to ask you a question that's been on my mind since I watched it. And that is, how did you make that epic Bradley Cooper cameo a reality? Because what a great moment.
Wow. Well, that was a real interesting thing that kind of came together. We had shot the film and finished the movie, and we knew that we wanted a kind of a cameo there in the middle of the film to kind of make that scene really stand out. And the question became who. And I called one of our executives, Zev Foreman, actually mentioned the Bradley idea. We'd gone through, talked about 1,000 names, and he kind of threw up Bradley as someone that was like, unattainable. And I said, well, we did make him Rocket, and I have a good relationship with his manager, and Rocket worked out pretty well. It was one day of work, and it worked out and kind of became iconic for him. And obviously, Guardians 3 seems to be all about Rocket, which is really cool. And so I called his manager and said, hey, I would like to screen the film for you. It's near done. The effects are still being worked on, the sound's still being worked on, the score is still being worked on, but the picture is pretty much done. And I live in Austin, Texas now, and I said I'll fly to LA. I actually didn't tell him I was flying to LA. I said I'd love to screen the film for you. He agreed to watch it, and when he showed up in the movie, I was standing there, and I had flown in that morning. And he said, "Well, you flew in from LA for this." I said, "Yeah, I really want to talk to you about it." And he said, "Look, I think this is a long shot, dude. Like, it doesn't seem to be like a thing that he's probably going to want to do, but you guys are serious about it, so I'm willing to watch the movie." So I walked him through why I thought the movie was good and why I thought he was going to believe in it and why I thought it was a good idea. And he called me afterwards. He was like, "Okay, so Bradley's going to do this." And I said, "Does Bradley know this yet?" He goes, "No, but we're going to work on this because this movie's awesome and it's great." And so we showed the movie to Bradley. It took about a month to show it to him, and he screened it in his editing room where he's working on Maestro for Netflix, which is going to be incredible. I think he's going to win all the awards for that movie. It looks really, really insanely good. And he screened our little, non black and white art film that he's making for Netflix that's going to win Oscars. He screened it in that same editing room, and he called John, who he had worked with on a TV sitcom or a TV hour long drama. I can't remember which for ABC a million years ago. John had been his sous chef on the show, and he called John and he was like, "I can't believe you directed this movie. I can't believe you directed this movie, but I will be in it. I love this movie. When do you want to shoot this? How do we do it?" And it came together really quickly. I mean, like, it was just the quality of the film, having a finished movie and having him be able to see it. And he agreed to do it. And it was literally 6 hours. Like, he came in, went through hair and makeup. I mean, 6 hours, I mean, from like arriving to leaving, like 6 hours going through hair and makeup and getting his hair and the makeup and the wardrobe. And we couldn't really figure out the wardrobe beforehand because we had him on the day. So, like, it was like a fitting, hair test, makeup test, whole 9 yards. He shows up on set. We do the scene like maybe 4 times, and we're done. And we were like, "Holy cow, that is gonna really be great." And the first time we saw it in the film, because we it was so late in the process, we didn't get to see the film really finished with it with the crowd, was at South by, and we watched it at South by, and people went crazy in that moment, and it was like, all right, that was worth the hustle. It was awesome, and I'm so grateful that he did it. I'm so grateful that he's such a good guy and such like a mensch that he would come in and like do this 6 hours of work for us. It was incredible. I mean, what a nice man. I just have nothing but wonderful things to say about Mr. Bradley Cooper. So
Oh,
thankful.
that's amazing to hear that came together. And it's a fun moment in a movie which I think is all about fun and having a good time. But I am curious whether you guys ever considered taking Dungeons and Dragons down a more not serious route. But I think a lot of people when it was announced maybe expected something like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. But do you think maybe that direction wouldn't have necessarily worked for the franchise as well as what we got did?
I mean, I don't know. I think as a producer, I'm incapable of making one of those things. Truly, like I just don't have that muscle. As a producer, I respect that stuff immensely. I think it's great. I think it's incredible that people know how to make stuff that is that like sustainably like tense and like dark and serious and brooding. But like I don't have that. I don't think I natively have that bone in my body. I think if I announced like a thing about that was like really serious, I think it'd be really confusing. I don't know if I would know how to do that natively very well. The closest I've come to doing something serious was when I worked with Drew Goddard on Bad Times. But it was such like a clearly like he had such a clear vision. I was really there to like help support him and help navigate the studio process and help him get a movie made. But like to be involved creatively, like truly creatively as a real partner on something. I mean, this is what I think I do well. And it's partially because like I didn't grow up liking, I didn't grow up liking Star Wars really. And so Guardians was like, how do we make a space movie that I want to dig? And I grew up liking John Hughes movies. So Spider-Man Homecoming became, how do we make a John Hughes movie? And I'm not like the world's biggest fantasy fan, truly, but I love the idea that people play D&D and they go to this fantasy world, but they get to like be a version of themselves. They get to like escape, but still keep their personality and like their humor intact. And that to me was what was so appealing about D&D was like, it's all about that repartee between the group. It's all about those dynamics of your friendship and of your table and of the people you play with and like what your buddy Joe brings to the table and what your friend Marie brings to the table and how you put those people together and they bounce off each other and they're hilarious and you have the most fun you've ever had. Like, how do we capture that spirit? And so to me, that's like, it'd be weird to make a serious D&D movie because I think most tables are pretty fun and rollicking and adventurous. That's why you go drive to Joe's house 3 times a week for an hour and a half in the evening and you make the time because you're having fun, not because you're like mired in like, in like, brooding for 3 hours a week or whatever. And so I don't know. To me, it's like the thing to do with this material was like to take it and like to capture the spirit of it and to do the thing that people love. That was the goal.
Yeah, well, I think you
talked
guys.
all the time.
Well, I think you guys nailed it, and I'm glad you took it in that direction. And I thought it was interesting that Chris Pine, when he was talking about his role, he said that when he first came on board, maybe the character was a little bit more stoic and a little bit more serious and roguish, and he wanted to maybe change that a bit. So how important do you think it is to get feedback from an actor like that and to have that sort of collaboration where he can come on and maybe bring some of himself to a role?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I think everything when you look at the leads in the movies that I've made, like Downey, when Downey came on Iron Man 1, we didn't know the movie was funny. Like we had no idea that the movie was funny. It seemed like it was like a techno thriller, It was like this cool, like broody techno thriller about a arms weapons dealer who's like gonna like have a change of heart and like kick ass. And then Downey came in for his first screen test and read the words, and we were like, oh, this is funny. No kidding. Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, let's keep working on the script because this is different. And that was like my first taste at like realizing like you can take this stuff that's like a serious story, but like give it a heart and a humanity to it by having these great actors. And so that happened again with Chris on Guardians. Like the movie was always funny, but then you see Chris bring it to life, and then you just start working it around that. And I think the same thing happened with Pine. Like I think Pine came in and he had a really great note, which was like we had a version of the movie that had Kira in it before, and we'd taken her out because it seemed like this daughter thing was a little much. And Pine came in and said, "I think you're missing something. I think this guy has a daughter." And we were like, "We just took her out." And he was like, "I don't know how I knew that, but like you should put her back." And we put that back, and it like gave him this humanity, and it gave him like a little bit of a more of like a true investment in the story. And that kind of allowed his humanity to shine through, and then his natural charisma and charm just kind of started oozing out of the character. And I mean, talk about it. I think Chris Pine is the. I mean, it's hard. I've worked with all the Chris's, so I have to be careful what I say. But I think he's just. I think he's spectacular. Like I think he's got so much depth, and he has acting chops for days. Like he's so skillful in his work, and he's so likable, and he's so funny. And I just like I think it's the whole thing is that collaboration. Like you're only as good as your script, but then on top of that, you're only as good as your cast. So like without those things working in tandem, like you got nothing. You know, you don't have a good script, you got nothing. You don't have good actors, you might as well not have a good script. And so it's a weird thing. It's like this layering of elements on top of one another to create this cohesive whole. And every single little decision and every single big decision like contributes. And so much of that is the actors, man. They like Chris is just incredible, you know, and having Chris and then Michelle like doing something she's never done before and like being
Yeah.
so damn funny and unexpected was just like, man, it was fun. It was fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, like
It
I
was
said,
fun.
fun, the perfect word for this movie. And Jeremy, we have to wrap, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your contributions to the Marvel universe, because I know I loved what you did there. And thank you for the Twitter follow as well. I'm sure I've been following you just as long. So
Yeah, it's been a long time, man. It's nice to finally meet in person.
you too, and hope we can do this again soon. Thanks so much, and
Later, man.
congratulations on the movie.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
You too.